John Adams said, "Our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." As with so many things, John Adams was right. He certainly is one of my favorite founding fathers. In the days following the January 6th attack on the Capitol, I became increasingly concerned about the moral state of our nation. When the late great Rush Limbaugh said pretty much the same thing, I was both relieved to know that others saw what I saw, but I was also worried the problem is larger than I hoped, since other people were seeing it too. Unfortunately, what John Adams said has been proven correct time and time again. Over the past 2 centuries, many nations have adopted constitutions modeled at least in part on our own, but to lesser effect. Corruption undermines the noble ideals enshrined in our Constitution. Ukraine is in the news a lot. It is a nation struggling because of rampant corruption. It strives to be free after living under communist rule, but its moral failings prevent that from happening well. Ukraine is not unique. Romania has both a desire for freedom and a massive level of corruption undermining that desire, sabotaging that desire. In some respects, this is the problem in Afghanistan. Initially, we were remarkably successful in beating back the Taliban. George W. Bush envisioned the benefits of a free people living in a free republic in the Middle East. Instead, the Afghan people elected a monumentally corrupt leadership. The religious fanatics of the Taliban looked no worse. The Taliban at least looked after other believers, while the Afghan government looked after only itself. The failure in Afghanistan is as much a moral failure as it is a military one. There are other problems with Venezuela, but rampant corruption has contributed to the desperate situation there. We've avoided the problems so many other countries have had, in part because we have been the moral and religious people of whom Adams spoke. But are we in danger of no longer being so? Adams said our Constitution is wholly inadequate to the government of people who are not moral or religious. We are heading into dangerous territory. We have always had corrupt politicians. I don't think John Adams was. Actually, we've been pretty lucky when it comes to presidents. I think that's because we pay more attention to them than to anyone else. It may be harder for a scoundrel to survive the scrutiny a presidential candidate receives. Although our current president largely campaigned in his house with minimal scrutiny, he is an exception. But he probably is a reasonably decent human being. Not a paragon of morality, but a decent enough human being. Even at the presidential level, morality can be tricky. Personally, I think George W. Bush was a remarkably decent human being to rise to the top of a business as dirty as politics. I think plenty of shady people surrounded him and helped him get where he did, but the man himself did seem pretty decent. However, I think he did have some idea how the political sausage was made. I think he knew some of the people helping him might not have been paragons of virtue, but he did not want to know what they were doing on his behalf. I think he might have been okay with others playing dirty, so long as he did not have to do so himself. Unfortunately, we seem to accept an awful lot of corruption from politicians. Sometimes the dirty nature of politics is to turn any imperfection, any mistake, into a scandal that can end the career of a political opponent. Almost certainly this character assassination keeps many good people from running for office. However, we do need to be rooting out corruption. Our politicians are not going to do it. We, as voters, need to do it. Unfortunately, this incentivizes more character assassination. But we still must be aiming to rid ourselves of corrupt politicians. I live in New York, where the prisons look like an elected official alumni association. It's not uncommon for half a dozen lawmakers to go to jail each year. While the lawmakers are most responsible for their actions, New Yorkers must do a better job scrutinizing their candidates. Rampant corruption is detrimental to the state.